work out that we have the presentation ready is Susan Sallon, and she's quite a fascinating person because she is an education scientist, obviously, but she's also very much into music, I understand, and she has a big family. And so we are grateful that you can make time, because you have a lot of things at your hands. It's not just you can focus on research as a young research student who is ambitious in science. It's really great that you can be with us, and you are sharing results from a study that has already but have you published it in a way that is exactly beautiful? Susan, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, good morning still, everybody. It's a pleasure to speak to you. My name's Susan Sallon, and I'm studying currently at Manchester Metropolitan University. I was teaching music and maths for a number of years, and when I left in 2006, I looked around for something else to study, and I picked on psychology. I kind of fell into it. I can't sort of say I had a desire to learn it. I fell into psychology and became absolutely absorbed by it, fascinated. And then in 2012, I think it was, I saw a program in which Malcolm Payne was being interviewed about the CSC program, Chess in Schools and Communities. And I was very excited by this program because it said that chess was being introduced into schools as a mandatory part of the school curriculum. Now, in this country, that was new. I know it's been going on in other countries where chess, the value of chess has been realised a long time ago, but for some reason in this country, we've been very slow. And when I saw what Malcolm Payne was doing here, introducing chess on the school curriculum so that pupils don't have a choice of whether to have chess lessons or not. They all do it in that particular year, whichever year the school chooses. And I thought this is marvellous. It's a marvellous opportunity for rigorous research, because everybody in that class has had 30 hours of chess tuition. And also the CSC has their own way of doing chess, giving chess lessons. So again, there was no variable in how the children were being taught. All the children in the CSC scheme are taught the same way. So, can we...
Shall I click for you?
That's the click button, isn't it?
Yeah, these. To go down.
In a quiz based on maths and non-verbal reasoning. I wrote this paper myself. I have taught music and maths for a number of years, so I felt that I was qualified to write the paper. And I did road test it on a number of, well, I'll confess here, my grandchildren. And they both enjoyed it and showed interesting results. So I felt confident about taking it to the schools. Right, so this research that I'm going to be talking about mainly, I did in 2012 and 2013. It's been completed, so we can talk about results. There were 483 pupils, year 4 pupils, in 14 schools in Bristol, Manchester, Liverpool and Teesside. 201 chess pupils and 282 non-playing pupils, the control. So all the chess pupils had lessons, had 30 hours, give or take, of lessons in year 3, and all the control had not had chess lessons. There were a few anomalies. I went into some schools, some chess schools, where pupils had just joined the school and had therefore not had chess lessons. I put those pupils in the control group. So I tried to be as exact as possible, that the chess pupils had 30 hours, the non-chess had never played chess. I did not want to worry pupils that they were doing another test, another exam, whatever. I designed this test to take about 30 to 40 minutes, although the pupils could have more if they wanted. There were 19 questions, maths and non-verbal reasoning, and I tested 4 different things. I tested numeracy, spatial awareness, logical deduction, and problem solving. So for each pupil, I actually had 5 results. One, a total for numeracy, spatial awareness, logic, problem solving, and the total. The total score was actually out of 40, and those quick mathematicians among you will notice that 26 plus 12 plus 13 plus 10 does not add up to 40. That's because some of the questions actually tested more than one skill. Right, a little bit of number crunching here. You can see from the results the pupils thought. I made it fun to do. I know it was fun to do because the pupils actually, a lot of them have thanked me afterwards and said that they enjoyed doing it, which is gratifying, because in fact it was harder than they realised. My aim was not to set a test where a number of people got 100%. I was interested in differentiating between all the pupils. And you can see that, in fact, in every case, the average score was less than 50%, but I've still got a wide variety. For instance, numeracy, which was out of 26, the mean average result for chess players was 12.19, which represents 46.9%. The mean average for the control group was 9.60, which represents 36.93%. Quite a difference. For spatial awareness, the marks available were 12, and the mean average for the chess players was 4.81, and for the control, 3.52. For logical deduction, the marks available were 13, the mean average for the chess players, 5.38, and for the control group, 4.26. For problem solving, the marks available were 10, and the mean average for the chess players, 3.54, and the mean average for the control. To look at what the probability is of these results being just due to chance. So in other words, if I did it again, am I likely to have similar results? There's no point in doing psychology research, any research, where your results might be due to chance. So I was interested in seeing what happened there. When I fed the results into the computer, I thought I'd made a mistake. The results were overwhelmingly significant. As you'll see, it becomes more obvious when we look at the next slide, please. Right. You can see there, for every single thing looked at, the chess players did markedly better than the non-chess players. In fact, in the 19 questions, 11 of them were done significantly better by the chess players than the control group. 11 of the questions. In 6 of the questions, the chess players did do better, but not significantly so. One of the reasons for that is that 4 of the questions were actually rather difficult, too difficult for most of the pupils who tried to do them. However, in these 4 questions, the pupils that did get the right answers were more often than not chess players, which I found interesting. One question, for instance, was answered correctly. This is out of 483 pupils. One question was answered correctly by 31 pupils. And of those 31, 24 were chess players. Another question was correctly answered by only 8 pupils. But of those 8, they were all chess players. So I can't claim significant results for questions like those, but it is interesting that it was the chess players who came out on top. So I was very excited by these results, and as you can imagine, I wanted to do further research. You can see there's a broad spectrum of ability. The good thing about this research is that letters didn't go home to the parents saying, do you want your child to learn chess? Pupils weren't asked, do you want to learn chess? It happened. It happened across the board. And in all the schools I've been into, I have asked teachers to provide me with a list of where they are on the national curriculum scale so that I can check that I do have in every school I go into a range of pupils, from the highly academically gifted to the pupils who are special needs. They all did these papers. I've taken all the marks into consideration. I haven't just, looked at the ones who obviously could do the papers or have a jolly good go at the papers. And marks did range in the chess group from 3 to 34, and in the control group from 3 to 32. So they both had a wide spectrum of ability. So where do we go from here? I've decided to carry on with the research because I think it's very exciting. I'm now in phase 2. I'm about halfway through, so I'm not going to be talking about results of this lot of research I'm engaged in. But so far, I have been into 21 schools. I've looked at 26 different year groups. And now I'm looking at not just year 4s who've done chess in year 3, but I'm also looking at pupils who've done chess in year 4. In other words, I've tested year 5s, and I'm testing year 6s. So I'll have 3 year groups, year 4s, year 5s, and year 6s. I'm interested to know if there's actually an optimum time for learning chess. Is it better to teach children when they're 8 rather than when they're 11, or does it make no difference? Do they benefit anyway, pretty much the same? I'm also interested in knowing whether boys or girls benefit more. It may be because of the different rates of maturity, I don't know, this is just an idea I've had. I'm interested to know whether boys or girls benefit more from these chess classes. I'm also, for convenience reasons, doing chess in 2 areas, Manchester where I live and London where I used to live. I always have somewhere to stay in London, so it's great to do research here. And I will be going altogether, I'm hoping to go into between 40 and 50 schools. I will be hopefully testing more than 2,000. I've done 926 so far. And watch this space. I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes?
I can't help but wonder, in the schools that chose not to offer chess year 3, are there any other common curriculum differences that might have an effect on the results?
My results be due to other factors, you're saying?
Right. For example, a school might choose not to offer.
Well, I've tried. Yeah.
Not
all the schools I've been into are of a similar ilk. They are state schools where they have a wide variety of pupils. These are not selective schools in any way. So I haven't had classes of academically gifted children. There may have been 1 or 2 in the class, but it's been the broad spectrum. Every single school I've been into, that was important, that I didn't have variables in the participants within each group.
I guess it seems odd that if they're all following a similar curriculum, why are some schools offering just year 3 and others offering year 4?
Why do?
I mean, why offer chess in different years if they're following the same?
I don't know. I'm not sure why they do it in different years. In fact, the reason I chose year 4 for the first part of the research was that most schools at that time, well, this is 2 years ago, were choosing year 3 as the class to teach. I don't know why that was, but that offered me the most scope for research. Now, I mean, there are loads more now that are in the scheme, so that's why I'm able to test year 5s and year 6s. One very interesting, you asked what other reasons there might be for improvements of results. Some of the chess tutors I've spoken to have commented on how just playing this game of chess once a week for an hour, for many pupils, is the first time they've actually been expected to sit absolutely still and focus on something for a whole hour. And I found out all sorts of interesting things. I don't know how much time we've got, but the one tutor was saying that many of the pupils that he has are very disruptive, difficult to teach in most situations, and it can sometimes take 2 or 3 lessons before they sit down and join in. And And I did hear a lovely story of one child who was the bane of every teacher's life in this school, didn't take part in anything, but was finally persuaded to take part in chess, actually became so good that at the end of the year he won the school chess tournament, and the following day his mother came into school and said, "What the hell's going on with my bleeding son? He's telling lies again," and all this sort of thing, and was blown away when she heard that her son, who she'd written him off, had come top in the chess competition. And I hope he's gone on to greater things. I think chess is wonderful for the mind. I think it's absolutely amazing, and I love the work that CSC is doing.
Actually, on this subject, there are children that benefit tremendously from chess. This afternoon, we have a session for children with special needs, ADHD, Asperger. And one question about the comparison from my side: you now will compare for fourth year to fifth year, sixth year. Have you considered also looking at much younger children? Because there are in many other countries, chess is started earlier, and even in England there is a few schools that are starting chess much earlier.
That's a possibility, yes. It's a possibility.
It would of course be much more difficult to use the same testing.
I don't use the same test for each year.
I see.
I've written specific papers for year 4, for year 5 and for year 6, based on the sort of things that they're used to in the national curriculum tests that they do. I've looked at level 1 papers which are done at the end of year 2. I've looked at level 2 papers which are done at the end of year 6. I've also looked at the optional year 4 papers, and I've also looked at lots of non-verbal reasoning problems as well. So
this is methodologically it's quite challenging. Are you working with some other people on
I'm working on my own, but I have had input from a friend of mine who is a primary school teacher, because I taught in secondary school. She's a primary school teacher with many years' experience. She has actually overseen all my papers, and has actually correctly pinpointed which ones they will find difficult, which questions. But no, I've got different papers for each year, and if I did research with the younger group, I'd do something different, appropriate to them.
Fourth graders.
Yes.
Internationally, we see third grade 8-year-olds. This is probably at the moment the most practiced. I mean, I'm not sure in research. Where's the biggest focus in research? You cannot third graders also. But so it's interesting to have this comparison. I think there's very little on like first graders, 6-year-olds, and even on older of like fifth graders. It's not that much. There is some research, but you have a question there.
Yeah, sorry. First of all, an observation. I am a CSE tutor. One of the things I do. You mentioned that it's done the same way.
Give or take.
Yeah, well, give or take quite a lot.
Everybody has their own personality.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, I can't do it in the same way in different schools, just because the reality is that the situation you're in a school completely varies. So you might have half an hour for a lesson, 45 minutes or an hour, or you might be working with year 3s or year 6s, and that's completely different. I mean, in the talk yesterday morning, the lady said about how videotape was used for older children, and the feedback was given that it was just much too young for them. And that's the reality, is that you can't teach it in the same way because older kids can typically handle it. My question was, the children, obviously in CSE schools, they don't choose whether they do chess or not. That's obviously a strength of the programme.
Yeah.
But the schools do choose whether they have CSE or not. And I'm wondering what you felt.
I've only gone to CSE school.
Right, but I'm wondering whether you felt that influenced your results in any way. As in, the schools are choosing CSE, that's not the majority of schools, therefore the schools are different in that sense. Might they be different in some other sense, which is also impacting on the results?
Well, my understanding from Malcolm Payne is they target schools in relatively deprived areas. That's their main focus. So I think that I'm not worried about there being different. I have tried to ensure, as I say, sort of similar schools throughout. There was, last year when when I was doing, 2 years ago when I was doing the research in Bristol, there were a couple of schools that were not, that were perhaps more middle class, and I matched them in the chess group with schools that weren't involved in chess at all, similar schools. But apart from this, all the others are of a similar ilk. That's all I can say. I appreciate what you're saying, that you can't always teach chess in exactly the same way, but the CSC tries to do an hour a week for 30 weeks, and that's what I meant by the same. I'm not comparing pupils who've only had 15 hours, say, with pupils who've had 30 hours.
Available? Can you have this quiz?
I can't let you have it yet, because I'm still using it.
Okay.
I've got 3 quizzes, not unusual for them in the main. I also used a large font. I also read questions out to pupils because I didn't want pupils with dyslexia or other learning difficulties to be disadvantaged. I've also used as few words as possible in the questions. I've tried to make it as easy and as fun to do whilst being a fairly hard test.
Mm-hmm.